Welcome to Production Expert, my name's Dan Cooper. In this three-part series, we're going back to basics on using reverb in a mix. For those new to mixing, these videos will help you establish a reverb workflow similar to what the pros use. And for those who consider themselves a bit of a dab hand at mixing, well, it doesn't hurt to remind yourself of the basics from time to time now, does it? In the first two episodes, I showed you a couple of ways of getting reverb working in a mix and how to pick a reverb sound, along with showing you the main controls you'll generally find in most reverb plugins. In this final episode, I want to inspire you to think outside of the box with reverb. So not just reverb type and reverb amount and all that. I want you to think a little bit more creatively, and that's using things like filters and effects to help your reverbs sound a little bit more interesting. And let's start with filters, as we've got them here in this plugin, being Liquid Sonic's Seventh Heaven. Going to focus in on this violin here, just explain what these defaults are set to. Got roll off here at 600 Hertz, basically cutting low end energy away from the reverb, and everything above 10K. And for those that have been mixing long enough, you may recognize those numbers being the Abbey Road reverb trick. And if you know the Abbey Road reverb trick, then I'm not going to explain it here because you know it. And if you don't, I suggest you Google it because it's a very cool technique, but we're here in the basics of using reverb. So that's for another day. For now, just want to explain and demo what filtering can do to the sound of your reverbs. And what I'm going to do is play this with the filters in quickly and then without. And I'm not going to say anything. I just want you to listen so you can hear the differences, and then I'll explain them after. So with. Now, hopefully you heard the second play round of that sounded bigger, fuller. Maybe you preferred it. The first playthrough of that with the filters in sounded not as exciting, but then we are listening to things in isolation here. That violin is on its own. Now, if we had lots of instruments going on at once here, let's say drums and bass and vocals and all that sort of stuff, if we had all the reverbs we were using sounding lovely in isolation like that violin, it may muddy up the mix quite quickly. Now, filters help us to focus the sound of the reverb by cutting away the stuff that we don't necessarily need to hear. Now, it's too easy to dial in reverb to sound big and luscious, but then too much of a good thing can catch us out later in a mix, and we're chasing around with EQ and compression, trying to clear out room for things to sit nicely. Often it's in the reverb. If we focus those using EQ, and in this case filters, we can easily save ourselves time down the line. So I do recommend that we play around with this stuff. So let me exaggerate this a little bit more so we can really hear those filters at work. I'm going to take away more of the highs and the lows. So with. And with the filters off. Now, if we put this back in the context of the mix, so back in with that acoustic guitar, back this up a little bit here, I'm just going to play around with those filters. I want to keep the airy quality because that's why I chose the plate back in the first episode of this series, but I want to roll away some of the lows of this reverb because that's where the acoustic guitar is sitting. So let's give this a go. Yeah, I prefer that. I prefer with the low cut. It made the violin sound a little bit more delicate. And at the same time, as I intended, it left more room for that acoustic guitar. Okay, now there's one more thing that you can try with your reverbs that I use all the time. I know many of my producer friends do as well. It's great for adding interest. It's great for making your reverb sound more fun, if anything. And that is to throw a delay before the reverb. Now, I like to do this on the effects return configuration. I just find it a more elegant way of working. So with this violin, just going to get rid of the insert on this. I don't need it anymore. I'm going to be using this auxiliary, and I'm going to load the verb bus that I made in the first episode. Let's just give it some level, make sure it's working. It is, but I need to have the mix all the way up to 100% wet. Perfect. Now, you may have noticed that I've got this on the second insert. I've done that so I've got room to put in a delay plugin before. Let's have a quick listen to just the delay. Let's have a little play around with this, make it sound interesting. And that sounds good to me. So what I'm going to do now is bring in the reverb sound that I've got. Remember, I've got delay feeding into this, and let's have a little listen. A little bit of fine tuning and I reckon that would sound absolutely brilliant. Now over in Liquid Sonics there is a delay control down here, but it is a little bit limited. Personally, I like to use different delay plugins before my reverbs, just as it keeps my options open. Anyway, I hope you guys got something from this 3-part series covering the basics of using reverb in a mix. As I said at the beginning of the video, I've been using Liquid Sonics 7th Heaven for years. I absolutely love it. Super simple, sounds brilliant, super reliable, and low on CPU. And I'd like to know your tricks as well. So do let us know in the comments below some of your reverb mixing fundamentals. But anyway, I hope you guys got something from this. Thanks for watching. I'm Dan from Production Expert, and I'll see you again soon.